Welcome to the May 2021 Pollinator Road Trip, a habitat grant update with the Native Plant Society of Texas Clear Lake.
I am Sheila Brown, co-chair of the Education Committee. I'm excited to update you on the 5 Native Pollinator grant recipients, if I don't blow away first. Wildlife populations are in decline because the native plants they depend on are fast disappearing. Our solution is plant more natives, and the natives are friendly. Less than a year ago, we formed our Education Committee and communicated remotely due to COVID.
Our Education Committee had a vision to provide our communities an opportunity to learn the value and importance of native plants. Plants that are native to Texas aren't only beautiful, they typically require less water and less maintenance, saving you time and money. The deep root systems of many native plants also increase the soil's capacity to store water and reduce runoff.
Our Education Committee has a vision to inspire youth, educators, scouts, and local communities to promote native plants. Our deadline was September 15, 2020. The grants were up to $500. Nature centers, schools, educational groups, and others. Why? To establish or refresh native pollinator gardens using native forbs, shrubs, and trees. Where? Anywhere in Galveston, Brazoria, or Harris County. When? The deadline for the application was September 15th, 2020, and we will be having another fall cycle this coming September 15th, 2021. Check our website at npsot.org/Clear Lake.
The Native Plant Society of Texas Clear Lake Education Committee is a dedicated and committed group of citizens, educators, master gardeners, master naturalists who communicated remotely since July 2020. The Education Committee consists of Nancy Saint, Sheila Brown, Debbie Bush, Donna Ward, Cheryl Folks, Susan Restivo, Hillary Gibbs, Martha Richardson, and Julie Mathis. Thank you for all your commitment. We couldn't have done it without these folks. A very special thanks to Cheryl Folks and Donna Ward for the generous monetary donations for the Native Pollinator Habitat Grant recipient signage with our mission statement, and to Mary Horn, who assisted our committee with the sign design, logo, and QR code.
Thank you, Sheila. And now I think it's time to buckle up and head over to the first stop on our Pollinator road trip, Hope's Circle in Galveston.
I'm Denise Franke, and I represent the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Galveston, Texas. And I have been a gardener there for several years now, I think since 2013. The pollinator garden, I started creating a pollinator garden before I learned of the grant opportunity, but I didn't know so much. I was just using plants that I knew draw bees and butterflies, not so much birds, because I'm still kind of learning about what draws the birds in. So when I began our little garden, I had already started the foundation. And what inspired me was bird clover. And I hope it's not a pollinator plant because I just don't like it. It sticks and it gets in dogs' feet and gets in my pant legs. And most of our turf was bird clover and sticker burrs. So I guess it was 2019, I began clearing turf and the sticker burrs and the bird clover. where the sign is actually where Hope's Circle, the name of the garden, is. The other area in the forefront is an area where I began digging up the turf and the burr clover and the sticker burrs to create something there. And right now the coreopsis is taking over that area, but the foundation was the red yucca and woolly stomodia. Primarily in the beginning, I was planting like Indian blanket and zinnias and African basil, bronze fennel to bring in the swallowtail butterflies, and trying to plant whatever native milkweeds I could find, which were usually the swamp milkweeds. And the area where we are is very brutal because it's very sunny and very windy. And so the soil dries out very quickly. And it's very uncomfortable there in the mornings until about 3 o'clock. And then the sun moves and it starts shading. So my milkweeds did not do very well, though they come back, but they looked pretty sad. So when I applied for the grant, I was excited because I thought, well, great, now I can bring in a bigger variety of plants. And I've been very fortunate also because I have a couple of contacts who shared their wildflower seeds. And so that has saved the garden for the pollinators to have something to feed on. Because my biggest frustration was, once I got the grant, was finding the plants that I wanted. And then we got the freeze, and then plants were very difficult to find. In the beginning, I started moving the spent zinnias and everything else that I had in there previously that was not doing well. And then when the freeze came, well, that took care of everything else. The yellow flowers that you see in there, I think it's called green eyes. I've been trying to figure out what it is, but it volunteered there. And so I left it because it looked like one of the yellow flowers that I've noticed on the beach. If it is green eyes, then there are bees that go to it, but it is very aggressive. So I started pulling that out. And the narrow area is the area where I extended the garden. And in that area, I am incorporating grasses and false indigo and various other things that won't fit in the circle anymore. But in November, I planted the wildflower seeds. That seemed to help the wildflower seeds produce. I was able to find some white gara, and I used the white gara to create the foundation. When I started planting the wildflower seeds, one of the lessons that I learned the hard way was you don't have to plant the seeds. You just need soil contact. So I wound up having to re-scatter seeds because of that. So I scraped the soil, and I later learned from Lauren Simpson, for better seed distribution, if you add a little sand to your bucket with your mixture of seeds, that you have a better distribution. And so that seemed to work a lot better than just grabbing a handful of seeds and scattering it like chicken feed. But that was a major lesson and just relieved me of so much work, because if all you have to do is have soil contact, then that's a beautiful thing. I did that and tried to keep them hydrated. And for a long time, because I couldn't find foundation plants or small plants until the native plant sale, it was pretty much just seeds. And so it pretty much looked like a circle of dirt that I would have to weed periodically. I primarily had to water because we haven't had much rain to get the seeds going. And before I laid the seeds, I had laid compost out on top of the native soil just to keep weeds down. until you can either mulch it. I like to mulch with leaf debris, and then I buy pine bark mulch and just lightly scatter the pine bark mulch, just mainly to keep the leaves down so that if birds want to come in there and dig around in the leaves, they can. So for the longest time, the bed didn't look like anything. And now it's exploding, especially with coreopsis. Unfortunately, not the native coreopsis, but the coreopsis that everybody sees at the Galveston cemeteries. Another thing that I learned, I really fell in love with ironweed because a friend of mine had showed me photos from her garden in Austin, Texas. And so I was excited to find this plant. And then I later read in Sally Wasowski's book, Native Texas Plants, that she had used ironweed and later found out that it really needs to be someplace where it can take over. And then recently, I got a donation from the Galveston Historical Foundation, some flagstones to have hardscapes so that people could maneuver their way into the garden, because my dimensions were like 12 by 8 feet, and it has since expanded, which can be an issue for any beginners out there. Lauren Simpson is always saying, start small, because that way it's manageable. So you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. But I might have bitten off a little more than I can chew, because not only did I want the circle, our pollinator circle, but I removed the soil and the easements and scattered coreopsis and Indian blanket in there, hoping that they would take. As far as pollinators, I know they're coming. I have seen some bees on the white gara, and now that the Indian blanket is blooming, they're coming in. I love that flower. That is a great flower. I had that thing blooming pretty much up until the frost, as long as I kept deadheading it. And then when I deadheaded it, I just scattered the seeds somewhere where there was bare soil. My basket flowers are just seedlings that I'm looking forward. I love that flower. If you've never seen it before, it's a wonderful flower, and the bees love it. And I've noticed in this week, now that the bee balm that I also planted, the bees are coming in for that. I also want to note that where our fellowship is, it's a very heavily trafficked street, because people are going to and from UTMB. And so whenever I'm working in the garden, people are stopping and asking questions, or saying, oh, how beautiful the flowers are. And if they have a moment, then I try to engage them that it's not just about the beautiful flowers, there's a purpose behind it. And eventually we would like to get some signage that explains what the purpose of the garden is. It's been a wonderful venture. I do landscape for a living, and I have expanded with 3 of my clients, creating pollinator gardens in their properties. So any opportunity that I can get or turn somebody on to this, I'll seize the opportunity.
Our second stop on our pollinator road trip is Island Park in Seabrook. Let's go.
Welcome to Seabrook.
As a project advisor for the San Jacinto Girl Scout Council, I was contacted by Seabrook 7th graders, Claudia and Riley, a year ago. The 2 gals noticed that local trees and plants were being destroyed all over the Houston area to make way for buildings, stores, roads, etc. Habitat loss and fragmentation has occurred throughout our area. Birds and insects have been losing habitats. They wanted to bring back some needed birds, butterflies, and other pollinators by planting native seeds and plants. Claudia and Riley were given permission from Municipal Utility District 373 who provided soil in a circular bed at the Island Park. Island Park is located at 3926 Breezeway Drive in Seabrook 77586. Island Park is a peaceful green space nature reserve with HOA restrictions.
I was approached by Claudia and Riley to assist them with their native pollinator grant habitat, and we have had a lot of fun with this project. They started out purchasing plants from the Native Plant Society of Clear Lake plant sale and planted those plants, and they made it through the freeze, did just fine. And Jim Durand was very instrumental in giving the students plants for their native habitat here. And eventually they were going to get their Girl Scout troop to throw some seed balls into the native area. They have worked on this multiple weekends over the course of the last 6 to 8 months. They also have a button bush that they've planted and a swamp chestnut tree. They seeked approval from the Mud District in order to have this pollinator habitat, and it'll be a beautiful spot for the community to sit on a bench and relax and learn more about our native pollinators. This beautiful little button bush has this collar on it because the original one was cut down by the maintenance crew, unfortunately. So they put the collar around it, and now, as you can see, it's thriving. And this will be a beautiful place for a gorgeous pollinator bush that will attract bees and pollinators. This is the swamp chestnut oak tree that was purchased at the fall plant sale. This is a temporary sign that the Girl Scouts posted recognizing the Silver Award in progress. This little tree has done remarkably well. They babied it over the freeze, and it's got the collar around it. I'm very proud of the progress that they've made, and it's going to continue. I invite you to come and see for yourself.
Next on our tour, we're heading into Houston to visit the Nature Discovery Center, where we'll enjoy the wildflowers in bloom. Next, we're heading to Memorial Park to catch up with the Memorial Park Conservancy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katie LaBeouf, and I'm the Native Horticulture Supervisor at Memorial Park Conservancy. The Native Horticulture team at Memorial Park has created a pollinator garden with the help of this grant. Our plants that we use at Memorial Park, we only use plants that are native specifically to Harris County. So we don't really try to use plants that are native, like Texas native would be all the way, it could be in the mountain region. So we don't like to use Texas native, we like Harris County native plants. So when we were creating our bed, we looked at the different things, how different flowers would prefer it, flowers and grasses and shrubs and everything. That would be light availability, water needs, how big they get, the soil composition. And then once we chose our location, we decided if we would need to amend the soil and then create our planting plan. So we decided to put our pollinator garden at our front gate to our maintenance yard. It was previously just a bunch of weeds that our grounds team would mow. And we picked an area out in the public that everyone could enjoy. So it's right in front of the maintenance facility. It's right along a trail called the TxDOT Commuter Trail. And so everyone that's going along that trail can see it. For the bed, the east side of it is shady and the west side of it is sunny. So the first thing that we did was brainstorm a design plan on some good old graph paper after measuring out how big it was going to be. And then after that, we digitized it so it would look nice. But basically, we just took a look at the conditions for the shady side versus the sunny side, and we wanted to make sure that we used a mix of grasses, forbs, some shrubs along the back where some fencing was, so it would kind of hide that. And we just tried to be as diverse as possible, which would really help out the pollinators. So here are some of our plant list. As you can see, we put it by common name and scientific name. Common name doesn't actually help you as much as you think. There's a lot of names that are quite similar to each other, but really they're different plants. Where we're going to put it, what size we could find, and where we were going to purchase it from, and how many that we needed. So here's our favorite sources of plants. I thought I would write it all down for everyone. I know sometimes buying native plants can be tricky. It's hard to find them sometimes. So just a couple shout outs to our favorite places. Mary Carroll with Green Star Wetland Plant Nursery, Barry over at Audubon's Edith Elmore. They have a plant nursery, Kit from Tree Search, and then Mark from Doremus Wholesale Nursery, and Mark from Morningstar Prairie Nursery. That one's, a couple of these are wholesale, but a lot of them aren't always wholesale. Nature's Way Resources. We found a place called Fern Plantation, and she has all ferns, which was exciting. She has native ferns. The Gulf Coast Bird Observatory, and then a nice fellow named Will Fleming, who has really cool trees. So in order to prep the bed, we removed the St. Augustine turf. We aerated the soil and added compost, because really it was just really compacted clay from just getting mown for however many decades. We sheet mulched it, so we put cardboard down and then mulch on top. And then we waited a real long time to make sure that no weeds came up, and then weeded the weeds that would come up, and then we waited some more, and finally we were ready for planting. This is our planting day. The MPC Native Horticulture team did it with some really great volunteers that helped us out. So this is kind of shows you that it's both sides. This is right after planting. It's got the shadier side, which is on the right side of the screen, and the sunnier side, which is on the left side of the screen. Actually, it's vice versa. No, the left side is sunny and the right side is shady. And then a few weeks later, we decided to take some photos. It's been pretty slow this year just because of the freeze. It really gave us a late spring. So actually things are starting to pop right now, but this is what I got for the last couple weeks. We've got Cherokee sedge, pink evening primrose, yellow wild indigo, which is actually blooming right now. That one's gorgeous. So for the signage, we had a chain link fence next to the bed, so it was actually perfect for our sign. We just zip tied to it, so everyone that goes by can see it. And then in terms of the freeze, we planted in the fall of 2020. And then the freeze happened in February, and then we didn't do anything special to them. We didn't cover them or anything, and everything survived because they're native and they're used to kind of crazy conditions, whether it's a freeze or a flood or a drought. So they were totally fine. Some went dormant that weren't dormant, some were already dormant. And like I said previously, we're having a late year, but everything survived, and they're just beginning to really flourish right now. So these are some of the more recent pictures from a couple weeks ago. We've got lyre-leaf sage, we've got liatris, Hooker's Arango is one of my favorites. We also have Hooker Leavenworthy Arango. For those of you that don't know those ones, they look like they're in the same genus as Rattlesnake Master, but instead of being white, they're purple. So they're quite gorgeous. So yeah, like we have the yellow wild indigo. We have chili pekin, which is surprisingly native, even though it's a little hot chili pepper that everyone on the NPC staff likes to go and eat in the summer. And then coral bean, I really like as well. It's really great for hummingbirds. We've also have red buckeye, that it's out in the lawn, not in the actual bed itself. Cherokee sedge and scarlet pea. And heartleaf skullcap. And then here's the list in a more easy to read form. For those of you who are wondering what we put in, but we've got graminoids. So those are our grasses, sedges, and we didn't put any rushes in there. So it's just sedges and grasses. Our flowers, which are forbs, and then our other things are shrubs, which would be the red buckeye, chili pekin, and coral bean. And we just want to thank everyone for all of our volunteers and NPSOT and the NPC staff. So thank you, everyone.
For the final stop on our pollinator road trip, we're headed to Cypress to see what the Boy Scouts have been up to on the Copperfield Trail.
Hello, my name is Julie DeBlang, and I am representing the project, the Triangle Bed in the Copperfield Trail, which was awarded a grant by yourselves as the native pollinator habitat. And I want to just take you through. Copperfield is in the northwest of Houston. It's a master planned community. It used to be prairie in this area, then rice fields, and now is completely developed. Copperfield Trail itself is a walkway that is built upon 5 gas lines under an easement and then next to a flood control drainage ditch. It's been used in the past a lot by local high school students running along it. It's also got Langham Creek YMCA at the end. And during this last year, of course, everybody is out using this trail within the community. So a well-used trail with a concrete piece. Along the flood control ditch area, you can see the trail here. There are smallish landscaped beds, mostly unfortunately non-native at this point, although we have one of them as a monarch bed. When we chose to give to the scout that came to us asking to put in a native plant project for his Eagle Scout project, we gave him what we've now termed the triangle bed. It's essentially this cul-de-sac of the path and the triangular section itself. The project area is about, just over 570 square feet. It's essentially flat and at the moment is dominated by, non-native unwanted grasses. The West Creek Landscape Committee, of which I am one of the volunteers in the community of local people that live in this community, wanted to have Gulf Muley to be the dominant grass. The chairman of the committee liked the look of that grass. They also wanted to design it with no plant being taller than about little blue stem. This is partly based on the feedback. We have a prairie bed at the other end of the Copperfield Trail, and it has had and does have Gara, basket flower, seaside, and Canadian goldenrod. And some, even though it is lined with a mulch border, some don't like tall plants. So, to contrast, this was going to be shorter, and we would not put in or change the irrigation that was already in the bed. There is one large sprinkler in the middle that essentially sprays the whole area, or more or less the whole area. Maintenance is always a big issue with these plantings. We have learned the hard way. Our monarch bed and our prairie bed, we have essentially said to the maintenance crew that we do not want them to do anything in the bed itself, but just to outline it with their weed eater. So to help that, what we plan to do is put about a 6-inch mulch boundary between the concrete and the planting itself. And they would be told just simply to edge the concrete until the plants got to that concrete boundary down the road. And then if they would, to mow all the adjacent grass areas away, so they didn't spray every grass seed back into this bed. So that's the plan. That was the design. In a general planting standpoint, this was, sort of layout of where we were going to put plants. Muley being the pink area in the center, with Liatris acidota being sort of a bright spark of color in between. And then some clustering up to the top right of the green. That little break in it is actually a drainage ditch that we've put in sort of some pebbles. So that's a wetter area. So we plan to put in brown seed paspalum with some meadow beauty. And then around the various edges, we have clustered in. So we've got Gulf Muley as the main and brown seed at the wetter end. The other grasses that we've chosen to put in is side oats grama. It's a teaching moment because it's a state grass. Purple lovegrass and knotroot bristlegrass, both because they're sort of airy and they self-seed out. So we're looking for things to sort of fill in the space. And then the forbs, again, trying to get things that are going to seed into the area. So the whole thing will become a sort of wildflower border with a muley center. So red salvia, lyre-leaf sage, black-eyed Susan, Indian blanket, tropical puff, and the coreopsis, Corpus Christi fleabane were our sort of green mulch, and then all these other things sort of scattered around. We've sourced the plants principally from Houston Audubon Natives Nursery and from Mark Morgenstein's Morningside Prairie Plants. And then last year I came and bought some plants from yourselves. Other things that we have in our own yards, like the red salvia, we actually bare rooted and grabbed a whole ton of seed to throw down. And we've moved some plants from the monarch bed and the prairie bed. So back in November, we chose to herbicide the bed to try and make life a little bit more simple. Lesson learned, while the Bermuda died, our contractor probably didn't use a pre-emergent herbicide, and therefore by the spring, we probably had the greenest, most beautiful ryegrass bed in the neighborhood. So fortunately, it's only got short roots. The Scout, you can see here sort of just past the pebbles, a scuffed area. They went out and actually started working out how they were going to get this out. Rather than pulling every piece of grass up, they were truly going to try and do some sod cutting with Scouts with regular shovels. So they also killed the fire ants. That's just a safety issue from working with these Boy Scouts. And so by the end of February, essentially all of this plant cover within the bed had to be removed. So Boy Scout Troop 1296, the Scout, I think he had something like 15 boys in the morning and 15 in the afternoon and less than 10 the following day to finish up. So it was done in a weekend. The first stage of this, of course, is to remove all the current vegetation. And you can just see it's hard work. And what I try and explain, 80% of the project is getting rid of the pre-existing grasses that you don't want. And while they're not going to continue to maintain it, it's actually on me and on the landscape committee to make sure they do this element as best as possible, because we will be the ones pulling out the weeds later. They did a fantastic job. It's clearly really hard work, but they got it done in 3/4 of a day, removing all of the previous vegetation. They dug over the bed, pulling out most of the rest of the roots, and then started to plant. We had the plants staged for them, so just so that the design would be sort of as we wanted it and spaced out. But they essentially got on and planted the rest of the plants, following, Tom Solomon's video, which I usually send to everybody. Dig a hole, put some water in the hole, put the plants in the hole, and then put all the dirt back in, and then do your happy dance around it to try and push all the air out. Kids like doing that. It's great. We had some seeds, some wildflower seeds, some other grass seeds. They were scattered around the plants, and then we put pine straw on top of that. That's been used successfully in other projects here, just keeping the seeds on the ground so they don't wash away, so they don't flood from one end to the other, and gives enough light to get through to them. The other thing shown here is the bags of mulch. So once we got everything planted, seeded, and straw mulch, then we just put our sort of definition line of mulch around. It wasn't really anything more than an aesthetic border to try and keep the maintenance crew in line so they wouldn't be encouraged to come in and chop down anything green that they saw that they might think is a weed. So these boys of the troop finished the completion of their project, getting in the signage at the end of February. It's a well-established concrete path around the bed, so it was perfect for this sort of planting. There's no question that you had to make any further definition because you've got a concrete walkway right around it. One of the beauties is that people walk right next to it. So while we designed the plants to be low next to the path, it gave us, or will give us, the opportunity to actually label some of the plants close enough that people can see the labels and read them. Again, I talked about this temporary line. So far, we're about 2 months in. It is working. The maintenance crew is literally taking a weed eater and just running it between the mulch and the concrete. They're not supposed to go into the bed at all. Signage, we have this Texas native plant sign. We have similar ones, similar style in the monarch bed and in the prairie bed at the other end of the Copperfield Trail. And then your native pollination habitat grant recipient sign was put in shortly after the whole thing was finished. It has since gone a little shorter. It's very windy on this section, and I think it just suffered some metal fatigue. So it's slightly shorter now, but we will continue to keep it up as long as it is still legible, and it looks fine right now, so that's great. So updates, end of March. Things are alive, everything looks good. The seed is starting to germinate. Prairie spiderwort's already in flower. Beginning of April, things are starting to flower. We've got penstemon and Corpus Christi fleabane and spiderworts. What we've chosen to do is put these little tiny white signs next to the plants that are actually flowering. So people sort of go, ooh, I like that. What is it? So hopefully we can continue that. And we're going to pull these signs up when they're not flowering, with the hope that if we keep moving things around, people might be more interested. Also, the signs might actually last a bit longer. The other thing that happened, which was a pleasant surprise, I hadn't known he was going to do this, is the Scout followed the example of the prairie bed and actually put his own Eagle Scout project out there with his name and the troop's name. And for me, that's a great thing because it shows, that he's invested. He and his family live in the neighborhood, and he's shown some pride in his project. And then just recently, wine cup is up and flowering. The project is continuing to green up. I need to get a sign out on this wine cup because I've already had people saying, ooh, I like that pretty little purple flower. So people are noticing. For me, you've got people that don't understand that things are coming and going and it's not a single color change. So it's a huge educational opportunity. And so moving forward in support of what we're all doing, native pollinator habitats, firstly, thank you for awarding the grant to this trail. We in turn pass this on to the Eagle Scout to buy the plants and the seeds. And then he completed the project with the rest of the materials and getting the workforce, etc., and putting his sweat and tears in there. We then published a newsletter article about the project and the plants and your sign. So hopefully people will link all of that. And then we have an opportunity to share seeds, both via the labeling, if you like, of the plants, so that when they walk, they see these plants and get a label and something to go chase up themselves. And then literally each year we try and share seeds of some of these plants out of these beds. Easy enough to do, you know, Indian blanket, Lancea coreopsis, basket flower, lots and lots of seeds. And people did come and pick up 2 or 3 packets apiece on the day that we were giving them away. And we just try and advertise it a little in advance, just so that scout groups can grab them for their badges, plus the school groups can grab them. And then, of course, this year, every parent was looking for something to do with their kids. Going forward, you know, we've had the freeze. Our landscapes all suffered here, particularly the non-natives. In our latest assessment, I think we lost something like 70 plus Indian hawthorn. And I think it's an opportunity. We have now got the opportunity to sort of try and look at options that are natives. In a lot of our shady areas, we're looking at beautyberry, inland sea oats, and maybe even the carex, which people are now using in the Austin area as an alternative to lawn in the shade. And then we're also going to look down the road at, you know, we've accepted grants from people, yourselves, for these plantings. And what I'd like to see is us actually provide some monies back to local groups that are willing to continue this into other beds within the neighborhood. So that's the future, hopefully. So thank you again for the grant, and that is all I have.
That's terrific. Thank you so much, Julie. I have a question.
Yes.
My question is about the tags that you're using. Where did you get them? And I love the fact that you're putting them out when that plant is blooming. I think that's a great idea.
I'm afraid I don't know the distributor off the top of my head, but they're little metal signs. I just get, you know, Amazon, looked for metal signs.
Okay.
The reason for taking them in and out, we had them in the monarch bed, and what I found is, one, plants grow. Well, actually, we had them in the prairie bed. The plants grew bigger than the signs very quickly, so we lost them to people's eye. In the monarch bed, they sat in the bed and just rusted, and then unfortunately, when our maintenance crew decided to shorten everything, they just whacked them all down. So I want to try and preserve them for as long as possible. Just by and sort of switching them out seemed like a possible way to do that.
No, that is terrific. I think it's a good plan that you have. I like that. Thank you for sharing. We hope you enjoyed our pollinator habitat road trip. I highly recommend chapter members and guests tonight consider employee and retiree giving programs to help our Clear Lake chapter. ExxonMobil has individual volunteer involvement program that is helping us. If a retiree or spouse volunteers 20 hours a month to a charitable organization that meets the requirements, $500 may be awarded up to $2,000 per year. The description category for us is environmental conservation preservation activity. The purpose for the Native Plant Society of Clear Lake Education Committee for Native Pollinator Habitats. A very special thank you to Debbie Bush, who is a master multitasker, who is delightful and calm to work with. We greatly appreciate her expertise. If you want to join the Education Committee, please let us know.
Thank you, Sheila. Okay, so we have quite a few questions that came in through the chat. The first one that came in was for Denise. And Carl wanted to know if you use iNaturalist to identify the plants. And I guess anyone who is doing a project could answer that.
I haven't learned how. I have iNaturalist, but I'm still learning how to use it because I haven't been very successful, and then I get frustrated. So I just need to play around with it more because that would be helpful for me, not just my project, but also when I'm walking around and seeing stuff that I don't know what it is. I just need practice with iNaturalist, that's all.
Our next question was about the tree at the Nature Discovery Center, and that was a Mexican plum. Virginia would like to know if Memorial Park would share that plant list native to Harris County.
Yeah, we can share the plant list. It's only one snippet of like 1 million native plants to here. If anyone wants to check, it's Bonap is a really great website that you can check where plants are native to that we really like to use.
Okay, and also for Katie, how long did you wait after mulching before planting?
We waited about a month, and then plenty of weeds came up, weeded them out, and then waited another month, took a couple weeds out, and then we were ready to go. But it really depends on what you had there previously. Just taking out all of the turf and other weeds that were in it led a pretty full seed bank full of weeds for us. But cardboard and mulch helps really well with like suppressing all of those seeds.
Okay, and Denise would like to know, this is for Julie, what did you use to get rid of the fire ants?
So we'd already told the scout that he was going to be environmentally friendly. So bless him, he got some boiling water and he poured them on them. So he chose not to use any nasty chemicals.
And that worked?
It worked fine. We only had to get rid of them for the day that the boys worked, so they can come back later. There are plenty of fire ants around, but we needed not to have them in the bed when the boys were working.
Okay, and then for all of the project leaders, did you do anything to stop or reroute routine mosquito spraying?
Certainly not in Copperfield. That's way beyond the remit of the Landscape Committee.
Galveston Island, I haven't noticed any activity with the mosquito trucks in a long time, but the city kind of controls that, I guess, when they're really, really bad.
And someone wants to know, can we petition cities to stop spraying? I don't know if anybody here can answer that. We could certainly try.
I also wanted to mention to Denise about the cats. I spoke to a friend who recommended coyote urine.
Yes,
So,
I have.
we've used coyote urine before. There's a company in Bangor, Maine that sells it, and you can give that a try to see if that may deter the cat issue. I just wanted to share that in case anybody else is having a problem with it. You can buy it. It's in liquid form, and you could put it on maybe some border logs or someplace that's near the garden, because the smell of it, and use double gloves when you do it, because it'll take your breath away. Let's put it that way.
Yes, I have tried that at my own house, but maybe I should use it on logs, because before I was using it on cotton swabs. And the key to using it is, if it rains, then you gotta do it again, apply it again. And I have found coyote urine at the Texas City feed store. So I don't know if it's as effective, but it is the odor is very strong, and you don't want it on your hands.
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed, organized citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.